because people who have been through trauma, especially at young ages and developmentally, they struggle with accepting their full selves. Just like many people don't accept themselves, they say things like, I don't know myself. And some people refuse to see themselves because it's too hard to look at. And that goes back to that trauma that we were speaking to. Sometimes it's too hard to look in the mirror. And lots of times people who have traumatic experiences, who have unhealed traumas and wounds, don't want to face reality of who they are completely. And that is what ADOS doesn't do, accept us in our fullness. Yes, we have brothers and sisters and mamas and babas and ancestors and all that came through this transatlantic experience or the Mayafa. We accept that. But the problem with ADOS, moreover FBA, is that they come up with a bunch of narratives to disconnect them from their complete story. And that right there is indicative of a identity crisis, especially a traumatic one. Because people who have been through trauma, especially at young ages and developmentally, they struggle with accepting their full selves.
So we would never identify our ancestors as slaves. We always use the term enslaved African because a slave is not, it's a condition. It is not an identity because you wouldn't identify your ancestors as slaves. Mm-hmm. So as a matter of fact, you wouldn't say, like, if somebody was to call your ancestors cotton pickers, that's what they did. But you would feel offended if you identified it, if someone was to use that as an identifier for them. Mm-hmm. Right? It says descendants of slavery is a designation of weakness and powerlessness. And for me, it also lacks creativity. When I look at when Africans name themselves, is always in association with something powerful and divine. Absolutely. That's why I've made a suggestion for naming African Americans, and the word that I use is Nkole. Nkole means an eminent or powerful person, and it also is the name that they use for God in amongst the Baluba people in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Like there was just no deep study, no going into the literature and the heritage or anything to try to come up with something that was worthy, of our ancestors.